Hello, everybody. Welcome to L&D Talk, hashtag LD Talk. Today is Thursday. That means it's Internet of Things Thursday, and my co-host is Anthony Altieri, and we're going to be talking today about the Internet of Things. We don't know exactly what yet, but we're going to figure that out right after this.
L&D Talk, we're talking learning and delivering our people. L&D Talk, right here on blab.im on the L&D Talk. We're on the Twitters too, talking with, not to you, talking about all the things you do. Yeah, on L&D Talk. Now give your warmest welcome to your L&D Talk host, Brent Schlenker.
That is the musical silence of our Friday co-host, Sam Rogers.
Learning and development talk. L&D Talk, L&D Talk, talk.
All right. Welcome, everybody, to Internet of Things Thursday. Hi, Anthony. How are you?
I am swell. How are you doing?
I'm swell, too. Craig, how are you doing today?
I've been better, but
besides your knee.
Yeah, doing great. That did not sound like the Eagles, though, at all. I'm not sure who that was.
No, it was not Eagles-ish at all. Didn't even have a Zeppelin vibe to it, I don't think.
Oh, no.
But, Don, you haven't heard the theme songs yet? Are you kidding me? Come on, this is old. No. Oh, yes. Well, you need to show up on Video Fridays more often.
Or you can always watch the recorded.
That's right. Yep. We happen to have recordings.
No excuse, Don.
Absolutely no excuses. So, so our formatless conversations on Blab every day, 8 a.m. Pacific time. Yeah, every day, Monday through Friday. Today's Internet of Things, and we're trying to figure out something thingy to talk about. And there's always a good connection with XAPI. So maybe what we can do is start off with that, Anthony. How about we do that? How about we let's practice your 60-second elevator pitch on how XAPI connects with Internet of Things. And go.
I hate talking about XAPI. So really, XAPI honestly is the answer to the question of IoT. And here's the thing. I'm very fond of quoting a Pink Floyd song, first of all, because they have great songs. But also, they have a song on the division belt called Keep Talking. And it starts out with, for millions of years, mankind lived just like the animals. Till something happened that unleashed the power of our imagination. We learned to talk. And that's an incredibly profound statement when you think about it. When you look at human development, what really helped us grow as a species, as a culture, as a community, was our ability to communicate, and more importantly, our ability to communicate thought and ideas. We really started out in very tribal ways, where I had my little tribe, Brent had his little tribe. And we individually knew where the water holes were. We knew where the hunting grounds were. We knew where to find food. But I knew where I found food. Brent knew where he found food. But we had no way of telling each other, hey, you know what? Hey, there's a really sweet watering hole over here. You can go get some good water. We had no way to communicate that. And then once we did communicate that, all of a sudden, not only were we able to share thoughts and ideas, not only were we able to expand our thoughts and ideas of, hey, Brent had this idea of, okay, we're gonna sharpen sticks, and I had this idea, and apparently Brent just went to sharpen his stick because he just went away. So okay, yeah. Apparently he saw something to hunt. You get the urge. But so I've been hunting with rocks. Well, now we can communicate that, and we can cooperate, and now we can put rock arrowheads on sticks and make them even better, which we would not have been able to do, without that ability to communicate. And really, that's where IoT is now. Is we have this situation where everybody has their Fitbit, they have their Up, they have these motion detectors, they have their internet aware, their IoT scales. They have all these things. Brent has finished sharpening his stick. Welcome back. Good job. So he is ready to go take on that mammoth. And I'm ready to watch the people chat in history. Humans and mammoths never lived together. Yeah, okay, whatever. So we have all these things, but they all speak disparate languages. They're not able to share that data very natively or very easily. Now XAPI comes in, and this is a ubiquitous data format. This is a ubiquitous container for data that you can have different, very disparate, very unrelated Internet of Things share data very easily now. And not only is that good for the consumer, because now we can see data and we can directly compare and correlate data, but it can also be a huge boon to the producers, to the developers of these things, because now I don't have to create my own, I don't have to have my own unique server, I don't have to write my own APIs, I don't have to write my own security and all this other stuff. I can now use existing technology. It is an elevator pitch. He didn't say what floor we were going to, dude.
I was just going to say, it's an awfully tall building, Marco.
Well, it's a very interesting concept, and to put it in perspective, I'm going to put a quote up right now that I just found. I was just kind of doing a quick search on the Internet of Things to see what was out there, and when you're talking about bringing things together, and you're talking about bringing multiple things together. If you look at what I just put in there, that's an amazing number of things that are surrounding us right now that are interconnected. And making those talk together and speak on the same level it's got to be pretty important coming up soon. So,
but here's a quick question. So, yes, there are all of these things out there. I'm going to do my best to try to tie this all back around to learning. All of these things talking to each other. They're talking to central locations. They're talking to the cloud, or they're talking to the fog. We talked about that last week, I believe. Or the mist, I believe. So, they're trackable, all that kind of stuff. But, which ones of those are utilized in a learning perspective, like for humans? Like, are most of them talking just to each other, to other technologies and communicating? Or like, I would be really interested to see if somebody looked at all that research and that data and said, okay, how many of those 1,000 to 5,000 trackable objects are actually engaged with human beings?
Probably 3.
I mean, you can name them probably, right?
Probably 3, and they're all related to activity or healthcare.
I would agree with that. But I think if you're talking about in relating it to learning, I think the general core of getting information is to find the gaps. And if you're looking for the gaps of what people either need or what they need to learn, that's the relationship you can put to, the things that are monitoring what we're doing and what we're buying and what we're selling and what we're telling people. And if the whole point of that is to fill in the gaps, then you could relate that to training pretty easily by, we have a learning gap, we need to fill that gap as well. So
let's roll with Don's suggestion. How are we already using these things in our learning strategies? Does anybody have, I know Paul was talking about trying to do something. He's in the HVAC industry doing training with, servicing AC units and all that. And he had some interesting ideas that he was going to implement, but is there anything else? Or maybe Paul has an update on his on his progress there. Or Fitbits is a great one as far as tracking and learning about our own personal well-being. What about in the workspace though, with a learning strategy?
So I think, this gets back to where the conversation yesterday veered around, you really have to you have to compartmentalize the e-learning industry. That's why I say I really reject the idea that there is a learning industry. I see at least three relatively and I would say very different industries.
Yeah.
And IoT is going to fit into each of those a little bit differently. So if you look at just the corporate learning, so let's look at just internal corporate learning, performance enhancement type thing. You look at that, and then you look at, like Craig said, well, what are the gaps? What are you trying to accomplish? You can't just say, well, IoT fits here, because you've got a very you've got a very vague and very agnostic approach there. You kind of have to have a requirement or a goal. So you look at, for example, we want to enhance performance on sales, and I'm just riffing. Somebody comes up with a better example, and I'm more than happy to run it. Well, we have, we can do things now where we can track, okay, how many outgoing phone calls are you making in a day? So let's say you sell paper, you sell photocopy paper. Right? We want to enhance your sales, so we're going to send you for training on how to be a better cold call agent. How better, what strategies work to call someone, get them on the hook, and sell the product. Well, we have the technology now that we can track how many phone calls are you making, how long are you on the phone.
Yeah.
Now,
is that an Internet of Things thing though, or is that just a software of things thing?
I mean, it can't. Well, I mean, and now you're getting yes and no. I mean, it's a little bit of both.
Yeah, this is where the conversation gets really tricky, right? Because it's you can't really just talk about the Internet of Things without talking about the logic that's required, the cloud, the mist, all of the other elements that are a part of this thing we call the Internet of Things.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, the thing itself does nothing really. It's going to get data and send it somewhere, and that could be that could be a phone that just tracks. Okay, this Anthony O'Terry called this number from this time to that time. Now that's going to go somewhere. That's going to go to a server somewhere that's going to collect that information. And in a perfect world, then that would compare your phone call records to, say, Salesforce, and you say, okay, well, Anthony made the number to this call from this time to this time, and at this time he entered that same number as an opportunity, and we see he sold 100 reams of paper. I don't know if that's good or not, honestly. So now you can start tracking that, but it's having it's having the hardware that can detect and sense these things to talk to the software.
The sensor stuff, right? So Craig, what are you thinking?
As he was talking, I was thinking how it relates to, I wear a Fitbit every day, and I've tracked my food probably the first 6 or 7 months till I got into a habit of what I should or shouldn't be eating. And you're right, transferring that information, the Fitbit is just a transfer of that information. But if you use that information to say, look, he's only eating, 20% of his daily vegetables that he's supposed to have. Maybe we should start giving him some training on how to eat better, and using that information in that way. I mean, that's the only way I can really think of intertwining those two things, is finding that gap of what I'm doing wrong with the information that they're being given, and then guide me towards some type of either training or information or advertisement that fits what I need. So
I think that's the suggestion thing, or what Amazon does, nobody would consider as an Internet of Things play, but it's a logic play and it's a marketing play. The idea of, oh, hey, you went looking for these things, might we suggest you also check this out or that out? Books and all that.
The two things I'll say there, because I'll do cause and effect. I have on my phone right now, and I haven't used this in a few days, so shame on me. I have two applications. I have Runtastic Pro. So anybody who uses Runkeeper, fine. Enjoy it. That's fine. I like Runtastic. And I have MyFitnessPal. And you can see those are my two, along with a bunch of my other. And I also have Wiley's app down there, which is for my blood pressure cuff, a tensiometer to be precise.
Nice.
I can tell you, and this has been, this is proven over and over again. I'm just replacing, I'm just replacing me with the word doctors here. I can tell you though, when I take the time to enter my caloric intake into MyFitnessPal, and I track the walks that I take with my dog, I can tell you, A, I eat better. B, I feel better after a couple of days. It takes a couple of days to get the garbage out. And 3, I am losing weight, and I can see that. Now, I was just in DC the first half of the week, so I haven't tracked anything that I ate or did this week because I was in and out of meetings. I kind of ate whenever I could. And I put on 3 pounds. So right there, cause and effect, when you have that, not only is having that data available to help you make the decisions based on the data, based on hard data, but as you're collecting that data, you're making better decisions because you're aware that data is being collected. There's a name, it's the observer principle or something, I forget the name of it. You cannot
there's all sorts of neuroscience behind exactly what you just said. There's got to be a name for it.
Well, I think it's called the observer principle. You cannot observe an event without affecting it. It's a very famous problem in science when you're doing experiments.
You can't observe an event without what? Say that again.
You cannot observe an event without influencing it.
Oh, gotcha. Okay.
You cannot conduct an experiment without somehow influencing the outcome of that experiment.
Yes. Gotcha. Okay. I know exactly what you're talking about. Yeah.
But in this case, that's a very positive side of that law.
Of engagement.
Because I'm seeing this experiment of collecting this data, I'm influencing what's happening.
But could you consider that self-training then? Are you self-training based off the data that you're collecting yourself? You're basically training yourself to eat better or to walk more or to drink more water based off information for Internet of Things.
I would say so, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, why not? And if you engage a community, right, to hold you accountable, let's say you make some of that data public. Now, all of a sudden, you're social learning to a certain extent.
Training even at that point.
Yeah, you're socially training yourself. Plus, you're giving everybody else an opportunity to learn from you, so they're connected to you communally. And
so one thing Paul just brought up a good point. There's a gap, if you ask me. I don't have the time to track calories on the road either, and I see some of the results. But my question to you, Paul, is this: is it that you don't have the time to track the calories? Because again, one of the neat things with this app is, just show you can also see the mileage on my car. So cool. But I have this little widget here. I just press that and I can enter what I'm eating. The problem is if I go to, I stop at a street vendor and grab a hot dog. Well, I don't know how many calories are in that. How do I enter that? So there, it's not that I don't have the time to enter it. I don't have the information to enter. So for me, that's the gap.
I think if it's a foot-long hot dog, there's a standard. So it's probably in the database. Yeah, Paul had another interesting point too. So how do we make collecting, entering that data easier? So besides that piece of it, I think the sensors, right, are the things that sort of automate that process for us in a lot of what we're talking about. Maybe not for caloric intake, but for other elements, right? So your Fitbit automatically tracks your movement. There's really no data entry there other than to have the device on you. And so it does that automatically, which I think is a huge step, forward from, obviously where we've been in the past. And that alone, I think, helps people. I don't use a Fitbit. I don't use the Fitbit app, but the iPhone just automatically with its own health app tracks your steps. So it's not always perfect, right? But I have kind of done a little bit of experimentation to see if how close it gets. And on the days that I do a long run, it definitely knows that, I did many, many more steps than on days like today when I'm probably just going to be parked in this chair for most of the day. What would be nice is for the app to notice that, hey, it's been 4 hours since you've moved. Could you get off your butt? That's what I need.
Well, and there are, I forget, was it Apple's iHealth, and actually I forget, what is it, Android Fit? Let me see, I think I still have it here. Yeah, Android Fit. I think they can both be set that if it doesn't sense movement in so long, it'll ping you and say, hey.
Yeah, I'm sure it exists. I even saw, I don't know if it was a Kickstarter campaign or what, but somebody had a little brooch or something. I think we talked about this before, where if you start to slouch at your desk or you lose posture, it just kind of vibrates slightly to cue you to back up straight, put your elbows at the right height, whatever, and at your desk. And yeah,
mine would be on fire by now, honestly.
Yours would have like a sledgehammer that would pop out and be whacking you in the face. Craig, how about you, man? How besides the Fitbit, what do you do with this stuff?
Very little, honestly. I mean, I actually use the Fitbit more to track my sleeping than I do my eating.
Oh yeah.
I've had a lot of problems with it lately, so I track, how I'm sleeping, what time I go to bed, what works best for me. So I don't use it for the traditional way that a lot of people use it anymore. But I mean, everything's so intertwined nowadays. I mean, if you think about it, what you were just talking about, if it's supposed to vibrate and let me know that I need to get up, how deep should those things go? Should those things have access to my social network where it can go look up and say, hey, he hurt his knee yesterday, I shouldn't be pinging him today? Where it can should it be able to go out and read my Facebook and say, this has changed. You shouldn't buzz him today. He's going to be off his feet through the entire day. How deep does it go? How much information do we really need to absorb into, one area?
Yeah.
Well, and I think that
depends, I guess.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think, it depends on what the data is and what the goal is. So, Ajay actually just brought up a good point, tinfoil hat moment. Believe all the info gathered in these apps is being sold or tracked by nefarious groups, e.g. groups. You in a lot of cases, you are the product.
Yeah.
You've got Fitbit, and I don't know, I'm not casting any aspersions, but I mean, a lot of these folks, Google, for example, we know Google sells your data. There's no question about that. So does Apple. Apple makes a huge amount of money selling how often you move, where you go, all this stuff. They use that. We know that for an absolute fact. There's no question. Both companies have come clean about this to varying degrees.
I think the Avengers have all my data too.
Probably, yeah. Probably. So, to an extent, yeah. You have to accept. Now, in most cases, it's very anonymized. They know that a 41-year-old guy who weighs X amount, X many pounds, is walking X many miles per day in Scranton, Pennsylvania. They don't know that it's necessarily me. They don't have my social security number, although I was in an identity theft earlier this year. So everybody has my social already. So, why not? So it is very anonymized data. So in that case, yes, you are the product. And quite frankly, that's why some of these devices are as inexpensive as they are, because they're also selling on the back channel.
Yeah. So let's take a little bit of a detour in this conversation before we run out of time. Not much of a detour, but let's just sort of let's take this back around to learning and some of the types of projects and the solutions that we go. Wait, yeah.
So okay. So let me bring that. So let me tie that back.
Okay, you loop us
to
back.
other point.
Okay.
Is so but I wanted to bring up both sides of that, the front side and the back side. Ajay brought up the back side, keen. Craig's bringing up the front side, keen. And that is, so what do I want to share? Well, this is where that data collection, this is where all that can pay off if it's done correctly. So for example, we can look at, and I'm going to stick with health for just a little bit more of a minute because it's a cleaner analogy. Well, we can look at, okay, Runtastic and MyFitnessPal, between them, they can say, okay, there's 20,000 people in the Scranton, Pennsylvania area. They weigh on average this amount. They walk on average this amount, and then they compare that to, say, Wilkes-Barre, Pennsylvania, which is 20 miles down the road. And then we look at ER visits, or we look at healthcare costs. Now we can correlate now because we are sharing that information to some extent. We absolutely can correlate. Well, Scranton is more active and has lesser healthcare costs than Wilkes-Barre does. There is some kind of a correlation here. So, now we can see that, but we can only get that because that data is being shared. So, to Craig's point, I think we do need to look at how that data is shared. Now, we can anonymize it. How much do I need to know that Craig hurt his knee, or do I need to know that someone, wherever Craig is, I forget.
You see?
Things like that. Now the value of that gets a little bit, gets a little questionable. Now, taking that to learning, taking that to corporate and performance, if we have cases where we can show, if we do something, for example, you know what, Anthony, we're going to give, I'm the company owner. Brent works for me. Brent, I'm going to pay an extra 20% of your annual health insurance. I'm going to pick up an extra 20% if you agree to use the MyFitnessPal and the Runtastic application, and you share your anonymized data with me. Now, that can pay off as an employer because now I have that information. First off, if I can see that you're being active, I can expect lower healthcare costs. And I can now say, okay, well, 25, this percentage or whatever of my workforce is more active and they're more productive, or they're not. And we can make, this is where Craig was saying before, the gap. Now we can show, okay, we've got this data, they're not working. How do we make them work? How do we connect this so they do work?
Yeah.
So that's, again, where these sensors and IoT can come back to coordinating with your learning, with your performance.
Isn't there, I've thought about this a few times. Isn't there a business opportunity here for, excuse me, for allowing people to choose to monetize your own data, right? The data is only, it's almost like insurance, right? Couldn't it be almost like insurance where the data, like one person's data isn't really all that valuable, but you just like one person paying into an insurance thing does scale up. But if you had 100,000 people pooling their data into a system of some sort where all of those people had the right to opt in, and now they could also benefit monetarily from that. So they all basically had a stake in how much of that data they were going to cut loose in that system and to whom, and you could make a certain amount of money based on that. Basically, making a market out of your personal data and deciding whether or not you want to join in on that and receive money from that. Is anybody doing that, or is that even feasible, or maybe it's too easy to game it and then somebody would have to figure out the legitimacy. I mean, obviously, this is something that like Facebook is already doing, right? They're already taking their whole user base and pulling all that together. But what if somebody did something similar where it was totally transparent and everybody got to choose and also get paid for offering up their data? Just a thought.
I think, the first thing that came to mind were there was an episode of Pawn Stars a while ago where they dared each other, or they challenged each other to get up and move around and count the steps. And the grandson won because first I think he put his Fitbit into a paint mixer, so it counted the shakes. And then he just put it on his dog and told his dog to run around for a few hours.
That's what I mean. It can be gamed. I guess the system, it's too easy to game it. Yeah. There's no way to be able to tell if the data is legit. So,
but I mean, but there are definitely some safeguards you could build into it. You'd have to be very, very thoughtful. I think it's possible. I think it's an interesting idea, but you would absolutely have to be very careful about it.
Yeah, it would be very interesting. So let's before we run out of time, we probably don't have enough time to go all the way through this little exercise. But what I was thinking we could do is just come up with a standard training scenario and see if we could apply Internet of Things to it somehow. And and just kind of talk through the process, right? So I know some people, or I've heard a lot about onboarding. People mention onboarding all the time. It's like that would be a great place to start or whatever. So maybe for this conversation, since it's already been discussed, maybe we can start there and just make it quick. Like what could we do as part of an onboarding program utilizing Internet of Things, or has somebody seen something that has been effective?
So some of the things that we came up with during the XAPI cohort a while back is using beacons or NFC to track your progress. So in a lot of cases, onboarding is, okay, you go talk to the HR person, go talk to the product person, go talk to the facilities person, maybe there's a health exam you have to take, go talk to that person, blah, blah, blah. So as you go through this, you have check-in points, and it tracks, okay, you were talking to this person from this time to this time. So you can do that, using beacons, NFC, RFID, and there are a fair number of companies that are doing things like this now with their health. If they have an on-site nurse, when you go in, you use your badge to check in, and then you use your badge to check out. So they know how long you've been in there, and that way they can account for it on your time card. Oh, well, he was off the floor for 2 hours, but he was having his appendix out or something. I don't know. It's excused. He was with the nurse. It's okay. In
the nurse's office.
and that's actually saved them. One company that I know of, that I've heard of, that's actually saved them a fair bit of money because, well, now, it's literally, I just walk up, I go bonk, and I'm done, instead of having to fill out this report. Because the nurse has already filled out the report. So now I don't have to do anything. I don't have to have my boss do anything. The HR system just correlates that.
Yeah.
So in cases like that, you can track that they've gone through, they've seen everyone. And then you can use that to make sure, okay, well, how many people have more questions about HR afterwards? Do we need to make sure they spend more time or less time with somebody? Again, getting to the gaps that Craig mentioned. Now you've got that data, you can make the adjustments on your onboarding process.
Yeah, Don just had an interesting idea. I've heard of people doing this before too. The whole scavenger hunt idea and simulations. I think the example I originally heard about onboarding was having some sort of tracking device, NFC thing or beacon, whatever, at critical executives cubes or management's cubes or whatever. And then as you're a new hire, as you find or walk around near these things, you can see who these people are and say hi, ask certain questions, or you're given certain questions to have answered and you're told who to get the answers from. And then you have to go find them. And then it tells you, oh yes, you found the right one. And, a little bit of a gamification attached to that. And I think to a certain extent for certain audiences, I think that would be fun and an interesting way to do it. But I also think that you have to be very careful because a lot of people, a lot of professionals just want to get in and get started on their job. If they really know what they're good at and what they were hired to do, sometimes a long drawn out onboarding process is just something that gets in the way of them getting started and providing value to the company. So I don't know. I'm torn between the whole thing. I think I love the idea of using the tech and thinking of ways to use it like that. I think we just need to be very careful of who the audience is, and how eager they are or how necessary a lot of that content is. I wonder if you could specialize it, and allow people to opt in, and have some sort of data maybe that says, hey, all the people that opt out, they ended up having to ask, 25% more questions down the line than those who went ahead and did it. So, hey, if you want to just spin up faster, you should be doing these activities or something to that effect. Collecting that data, I think it has long-term value of proving whether or not it was a successful use of the technology or not.
One interesting side note, though, if you want to learn how to use IoT to build a scavenger hunt-like application, you can join me in my full-day workshop at Focus on Learning in Austin, Texas on June the 6th, I believe.
And that's a fantabulous segue, Anthony. Don, will there be XAPI? Of course there will be XAPI.
Where won't there be XAPI?
It's a brilliant question, I say. Absolutely. Yes, there will be. How many of you in the audience are going to be there? Craig, you going to be there?
I am not, unfortunately.
Nope. And beacons, yes.
But no bacon, sorry.
Lots of beacons, no bacons. So that's what, June, I think? June or July, Anthony?
It's June. My first workshop is June 6th. XAPI camp, that's Monday, June 6th. XAPI camp is Tuesday, June 7th. And then the conference runs Wednesday, June 8th through Friday, June 10th.
Awesome.
At the beautiful...
Awesome. Sounds good. Well, 8 o'clock hour. Craig, anything you'd like to add as closing comments about the Internet of Things?
No, I think we had a pretty good discussion today again. It was awesome.
Outstanding. I'm glad you were able to join us today. I know how much your knee must hurt you, but it's nice to have you in on the video. So
I enjoyed it.
Kind of glad it worked out. You're icing that, right? And
oh, yeah. That's what I've been shifting over to the left for all the time, is moving the ice around. So.
Excellent. All right, cool. So they can find you at Contrast Band on Twitters. Any place else people can
I just
get
put
to
my
know you
WordPress
better?
up.
A blog?
Yeah,
perhaps?
I just put my WordPress up. I'm overdue for one, so I should have one coming out next week or so.
All right, cool. Well, thank you for joining us again. That's awesome. Anthony, how about yourself? Besides your outstanding workshop that everybody should go to and learn more about beacons.
I'm always available on the Twitters at AA_Altieri. And I will also plug, like I said, on Tuesday, June 7th, is XAPI Camp. I will be there, as will Lectora Publishing. I believe Riptide will be there. There's going to be a lot of folks will be there. It is a fantastic opportunity to go learn about XAPI, and that is hosted by the godfather of XAPI, Aaron Sanders.
Outstanding. Yes, for sure. He's going to be all over the place. That guy's talking XAPI everywhere he goes, and all the wonderful things it can do. So fantastic. Another wrap on a Internet of Things Thursday. Thanks, Anthony, as always, for being my co-host today. All right. So, and everybody else, hey, we're here at 8 o'clock, 8 a.m. Pacific time for L&D Talk on Blab. We're going to be formalizing this stuff a little bit, not too much, just the scheduling, all of that, but we will still be as free-form and as loosey-goosey as in our crazy conversations and content. And yes, Holly, we'll get to chat bots. Then maybe we can save that for next week. And yeah, being a half participant is better than not being here at all. So it's always good. So tomorrow, Friday, is Video Friday with our fabulous musical genius, Sam Rogers, who will be here. And yeah, and so this past week I was in Vegas for C3. That is now behind us. Lots of cool announcements. If you want to go hit up litmus.com and check out all the new we launched and actually discussed a little bit yesterday about Internet of, well, not the Internet of Things. What am I saying? The training ops, Litmus training ops we just launched, which it's a nice extension of what an LMS normally does, handling the business and the operations of the work that we do. It's very, very, very cool stuff. I would encourage you to check it out. You can read more about it as I start to learn more about it myself and blog about it at litmus.com/blog. And you can also find out more about ATD. We will be there as well. And lots of, be sure to use the hashtag when you're talking about this particular L&D Talk. We're using just LDTALK for LD Talk. And I think that's all, except for in October, we have another new fabulous event coming up that I'll be hosting, where we will be talking about a lot of the work that we do and actually getting work done and really getting down to moving the needle, as they say, and teaching and getting everybody to learn from each other. We'll have a boatload of great sessions. We have speakers coming in from outside of our industry, very new, very fresh content, but these are all of the people and the things that we do and have specialists in that really actually do specialize in a lot of this this content that we talk about, from project development to management and leadership, design development, technology stuff, virtual reality, augmented reality, all of the stuff that's happening right now. Whether you think it's futuristic or not, there are some realities in future tech happening right now. And we'll be talking about everything that you're doing today and a little bit into the future as well and what's coming. So lots of fun there as well. And I think that's all. You guys, I guess, had bandwidth issues there shortly, but I'm glad you're back as I close out. So thanks, everybody. We will see you Friday. Isn't my sound going? Oh, well. Adios.